Greetings, fellow seekers. Today we step into the lightless places, the ruins and crypts where warmth has long since fled, and the dark does not merely conceal danger, but hungers for it. In such places, shadows move when they should not. They stretch too far, they linger too long, and sometimes they detach. This is the shadow, the darkness that remains when a creature's soul is lost to eternal torment. It is not a ghost, nor a spirit that remembers its past life, but a twisted remnant, a formless echo of death, silent and endlessly patient. Join us as we uncover its origins, abilities, and the chilling truths behind a predator that strikes from darkness and leaves nothing behind. The shadow is an undead entity, a remnant of a soul severed at the moment of death, often in places steeped in necrotic magic or cursed memory. Some arise in the aftermath of violent tragedy. Others are born of dark rituals or from the touch of a wraith which devours the soul and leaves behind only darkness. Unlike ghosts, which are the lingering spirits of the dead, shadows are mindless echoes, fragments of death itself, stripped of memory, thought, or identity. They do not think, they do not feel. They are not spirits of the person that once was, but residue, bound to the final moments of loss and driven by a hunger for the warmth of life they no longer possess. They are most often found in abandoned places, tombs, ruins, battlefields, anywhere death was swift and the light has long since failed. Once formed, they do not wander far. They wait, and when they sense breath, movement, or heartbeat, they close in without hesitation. A shadow appears as the silhouette of a humanoid figure, fluid, flickering, and featureless. It stretches unnaturally and shifts without sound. In dim light, it may pass for a trick of the eye, and in darkness, it vanishes completely. Though its shape seems weightless, it is not truly incorporeal. A shadow cannot pass through solid walls or armor, but it can slip through spaces no wider than a blade's edge. Its touch does not draw blood, it drains strength. Those struck grow sluggish, their limbs heavy, their grip weakening with every blow. The effect endures until the victim is able to rest, and if a creature's strength is reduced to nothing, it does not simply fall, it dies. If the victim was a humanoid, one not steeped in evil, their body lies still until hours later it stirs again, reborn as another shadow. Shadows are silent ambushes. They prefer enclosed spaces, faint light, and isolated prey. They often wait just beyond the reach of campfires, at the edge where warmth fades and vigilance begins to slip. They do not fight with fury or coordination. They flow forward, strike once, and slip back into the dark. A single shadow may wear down its victim across long, harrowing hours. A group can overwhelm an entire party in minutes. They avoid sunlight entirely as its touch weakens them. But in total darkness, they are nearly impossible to detect. And when one shadow claims a victim, a second will eventually rise. In this way, they do not merely hunt, they multiply. They often strike the wounded, the weary, or the unaware. Any flicker of weakness is invitation. Some among the seekers believe that arcane power draws their attention more keenly, as though the light of magic burns brighter against the dark. Whether truth or theory, one lesson remains. The moment you feel safe is the moment they are closest. To face a shadow is to risk more than injury. Its form resists most weapons, and it is immune to exhaustion, poison, and all attempts to charm or restrain it. Only magical attacks, whether by spell or blade, can strike it with full effect. It moves without sound and slips through gaps no wider than a dagger's edge. A sealed door offers no comfort if the stones have shifted or the frame is cracked. Shadows need no key, only an opening. Light is your first defense. Holy wards and daylight spells can repel them, and even torchlight can delay their approach. But if one of your companions begins to slow, arms trembling, breath faltering, do not wait to see if it passes. That is not fatigue, it is their unraveling. Many stories of the shadow begin the same way, with a lantern that gutters or a fire that fails. One tale speaks of Kramer, a quiet village nestled deep in the veiled glens. One spring, a dozen hunters left the settlement to follow the wild herds eastward. They were gone nearly 3 weeks. When they returned, they expected to be welcomed with lanterns and song. Instead, they found silence. The livestock were unpenned but unblooded. The gates hung open, swinging gently in the breeze. Within the homes, meals had spoiled on tables, chairs were overturned, beds unslept in, yet not a single body remained. What they found instead were blackened imprints, thin, scorched silhouettes on stone and timber, as though the shadows of the villagers had been burned into the walls. At the edge of the well, one of the hunters screamed. A figure had appeared beside him, humanoid in shape but hollow and twitching, its arms too long, its outline blurred as though submerged in water. They turned to flee. But as they did, more shapes emerged, from doorways, from alleys, from behind the trees. Every villager was still there, just not as they had been. Another story follows the final march of a sellsword company called the 9 Embers, last seen travelling through the lowlands north of Harrowfen. They had been hired to clear a ruined watchtower, an old stone husk thought to be home to feral undead. Of the 9, only their captain and quartermaster were found weeks later, both dead. But the company's logbook survived, and one passage has since been cited in multiple field manuals. It tells of a soldier named Brain who was wounded in the first encounter, though no blood was drawn. He complained of weakness in his limbs, then fatigue, then silence. By the next morning he couldn't hold a weapon. By evening he could barely speak. He died that night, breath shallow, skin pale but unmarked. They buried him just before midnight. A watch was set, but in the hour before dawn, the sentry cried out. Something was rising from the grave soil, humanoid in shape but stretched and wavering, as though carved from smoke. It had no face, no voice, no breath, but its movements echoed Brain's stance, and the others swore they recognized the way it held its arms, an echo, not a resurrection. When they tried to strike it, their blades met little resistance, and when it touched the sentry, he fell without a sound. A final tale comes from the night roads of Velmist Vale, where a courier named Darren Pell was hired to deliver a sealed case of scrolls to a temple archive before sunrise. The route was narrow and wooded, with only 2 resting posts between settlements. Darren never made it to the second. The first outpost reported him passing through, tired but well. The second found only his horse, saddlebags intact, reins severed as if torn in panic. A search party traced his trail back and discovered signs of a struggle. Scattered boot prints, a shattered lantern, and drag marks across the creek bed that ended beside a moss-covered stone wall. There, standing motionless in the shade of a broken arch, was a dark figure, humanoid in outline but flickering, hollow, and utterly silent. The scouts did not linger. No trace of Darren was ever found. But those who ride the Velmist roads after nightfall still speak his name and check behind themselves when the trees grow too thick. The shadow is a remnant of death, no mind, no voice, only the drive to unmake what still lives. It does not feed on flesh, it does not seek revenge. It is drawn to life not to destroy it, but to smother it, and once it touches you, it does not stop until there is nothing left to stand. And thus, we conclude this entry into the archives of the Seekers Society. If you found meaning in this descent into silence and death, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever encountered a shadow in your travels, or seen its signs in places thought empty? Share your stories in the comments below. And if there is another entity that you would like us to explore next, please let us know. Until next time, Seekers, may your path stay lit and your shadow always be your own.